OCO, everyone.
Kid, you rock.
Mark Charles is next.
It's awesome, man. Okay, now we're going to move along to Mark Charles. He's a Navajo. He's going to say some good words for us. So give this guy a big hand, please.
Yate. Mark Charles Enos, yeah. Sinbakajan the Slint, do Toha Glini Basas Chin, Sinbakajan Basas Che, do Toha Chitney Basanella. It's very good to be here in front of so many Native people here in Washington, D.C. I moved here from the Navajo Reservation about a year ago with my family, and there's not many Native peoples in this place, so I feel more at home now with everyone around today. So, yeah, thank you for walking here and for being here with us. It is very ironic that today we are standing in front of the Lincoln Memorial talking about healing and about the rights and the blessing of people of color and especially of our Native peoples. Because most of us as Native peoples, we understand the history of Abraham Lincoln. We understand that in 1862 he ordered the largest mass execution in the history of our nation with the hanging of the Dakota 38. We've come to grips with that this man that this nation holds up as a hero actually did devastating things to Native peoples in the 1860s. But there's things that our nation also doesn't know about Abraham Lincoln. They don't know that in the museum of this memorial is a quote by President Lincoln that says, "My primary object in this struggle is not to save or destroy slavery, it's to preserve the Union. If I could preserve the Union without freeing a single slave, I would do it. And if I could save the Union by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. And if I could preserve the Union by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do that." Hanging in this museum at the base of this memorial is a plaque that literally states, "Black lives don't matter." That's the juxtaposition we have as people of color in the United States of America. Our nation has been founded on some incredibly dehumanizing and oppressive foundations. In 1852, there was a papal bull that was written that told the peoples of Europe to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens and pagans whatsoever. This was the first of a papal bulls in a series of papal bulls written between 1452 and 1493 that collectively became known as the Doctrine of Discovery. The Doctrine of Discovery is the church in Europe saying to the nations of Europe, wherever you go, whatever lands you find not ruled by Christian rulers, those people are less than human, and the land's yours for the taking. This was the doctrine that literally allowed European nations to colonize and enslave Africa. It was also the doctrine that allowed Christopher Columbus, who was lost at sea, to land in a new world already inhabited by millions and claim to have discovered it. You cannot discover lands that are already inhabited. If you're American and not Native and you don't believe me, I encourage you to leave your cameras and your smartphones out in front of you, and our Native peoples will come by and discover them for you. You cannot discover lands that are already inhabited. That is called stealing. That is called conquering. That is called colonization. It is not called discovery. The fact that our nation still refers to what Christopher Columbus did as discovery reveals their implicit racial bias, which is that natives and people of color are not fully human. Now, the problem is this doctrine of discovery has been embedded into the foundations of our country. So the Declaration of Independence, which boldly states all men are created equal, 30 lines later refers to natives as merciless Indian savages, demonstrating the only reason they use the term all men is because they had a very narrow definition of who was and who was not human. The Constitution begins with the words, "we the people," but Article 1, Section 2 never mentions women, excludes natives, and counts Africans as 3/5 of a person, making it very clear that they said "we the people," what they really meant was white landowning men. That's who the Constitution was written to protect. In 1823, there was a Supreme Court case, Johnson versus McIntosh, two men of European descent litigating over a piece of land. One guy got the land from a native tribe, the other guy got the land from the government. They want to know who owned it. The case goes all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court had to decide the principle upon which land titles were based. They concluded the principle was discovery gave title to the nations that discovered it. And they went on to conclude that based on the doctrine of discovery, natives, who are less than human, only have the right of occupancy to land, while Europeans have the right of discovery to the land and therefore the true title to it. This helped create a legal precedent for land titles that was referenced by the Supreme Court as recently as 2005. The United States of America has racism systemically built into its very foundations, and we don't know how to talk about it. We don't know how to dialogue about the fact that the very foundations of this nation are based on a doctrine that says people of color are less than human. There's an Aboriginal leader from Canada who says, where common memory is lacking, where people do not share in the same past, there can be no real community. If you want to build community, you have to start by creating a common memory. I think this quote gets to the heart of our challenges with race here in America, is we don't have a common memory. We have a dominant white culture that remembers a history of discovery, expansion, exceptionalism, and opportunity, and we have peoples of color and Native peoples and African Americans and others who remember a history of stolen lands, broken treaties, slavery, ethnic cleansing, boarding schools, violence against women, internment camps, and there's no common memory. And that is why I'm convinced we have so much challenge and so much struggle creating real community across Turtle Island. I tell as many people as I can, Native Americans, we have to be involved in the conversation. Our country is trying for the past 7 years to pass comprehensive and just immigration reform. And there's no natives in the dialogue. I tell people, without natives in the conversation, all you have is one generation of undocumented immigrants trying to figure out what to do with another generation of undocumented immigrants, and there's no integrity in your dialogue. If you want comprehensive and just immigration reform, bring natives to the table. Yesterday we had a town hall meeting with our president. It was a black, white, and blue dialogue. I said, where's the natives? Where are the natives? Our nation, because it was founded on a myth of discovery, tries to perpetuate that myth by overlooking our needs. We all know the violence that happened and the Black Lives Matter movement that took place last week. And those were horrible, tragic events. But as natives, we know that these things happen on and off our reservations on a regular basis, and they never even make the news. The media doesn't even cover it. I'm convinced one of the problems we have as a nation, the United States of America, is that we do not share a common memory, and therefore we struggle greatly to have true community. And that's what I want to invite everyone here to begin to do. I invite you to learn your history. I invite you to understand the legal precedent for the house that you own, why you're able to buy and sell land in this continent. I invite you to look at the policies of your government and the things that they teach and the foundations that they've built this country upon. And then when you do that, you will learn that as a nation, we are systemically racist. But we don't have to stay there. We can change it. We can change that dialogue. We can become something better, but it's not going to happen until we face our history and create a common memory. We need to have a national dialogue on race that includes everybody, especially the Native peoples. I love what Dennis Banks is doing. I love that he walked across the country and everyone who joined him and raised awareness. I love this sign that says, "We are still here." I love the fact that our Native peoples are standing up and causing our nation and the world to take notice. We need to do that. One of the things that I say to our Native peoples all over the country is we are the host people of the land. We live in a nation that desperately needs to be adopted. We have a group of immigrants who've left their nations for the past 500 years, and they have no idea why the mountains lie where they lie or why the rivers flow where they flow, and they live here like they're living in a hotel room. And as natives, our creation stories take place here, and they cause us, help us, challenge us to live sustainably in this land. We are the host people of the land, and we need to stand up and assume the role of host. And I love the way that we are doing it by walking across the nation, by raising awareness, by teaching our history. Yeah, my relatives, I am so blessed to be standing among you today. I am so blessed to be a part of what you're doing today, and I thank you for coming here and helping our country take notice of this history and of this violence that they want so badly to suppress. Yeah, my relatives, thank you.